Far from the grand palaces of Denmark, under the watchful eyes of curious onlookers and behind the polished protocol of royal life, something deeply revealing occurred, something that offers a raw glimpse into the true heart of Queen Mary and King Frederik. While the world sees crowns and ceremonies, their latest actions, taken far from their homeland, speak louder than any royal decree. They didn't just make a public appearance, they made a statement. And that statement has left even seasoned royal watchers stunned. The setting was not Copenhagen, not the traditional royal estates where they are expected to smile, wave, and maintain the appearance of seamless unity. No. This was something different. This was a journey marked by intention, emotion, and perhaps even rebellion. Because when Queen Mary and King Frederik stepped onto foreign soil, they also stepped into a far more revealing spotlight, one that doesn't simply reflect titles, but character. Their behavior abroad has confirmed what many royal insiders and followers had long whispered behind closed doors, that their bond is far more complex, and far more resilient, than anyone imagined. They arrived not as distant figureheads, but as humans. Cameras caught moments of unspoken communication between them, glances that betrayed history, vulnerability, and above all, a kind of renewed closeness that cannot be faked. The Queen, radiant and poised yet visibly present in each interaction, did not cling to the rigid decorum of royal instruction. She leaned into people, she listened, she smiled, not with rehearsed charm, but with something warm and real. King Frederik, often seen as the more reserved of the two, mirrored her energy. He was lighter, more open, his gestures infused with a certain tenderness that didn't go unnoticed. But what was most striking wasn't merely how they acted together, it was what they chose to do with their time. Instead of remaining cocooned in luxury or attending only high-profile summits, they made time for the people often forgotten in royal itineraries. They visited shelters, schools, and cultural centers. Queen Mary, true to her roots and humanitarian heart, spent time with survivors of domestic abuse, something she has long championed. And rather than simply delivering a rehearsed speech, she stayed long after cameras had left, talking, listening, embracing. One woman who met her tearfully admitted she felt like she'd spoken to a sister, not a queen. This wasn't just diplomacy. It was a quiet revolution. And perhaps it revealed a deeper truth about Queen Mary in particular, that her role as consort is only one layer of who she is. Underneath the royal title is a woman still shaped by her Australian roots, by her understanding of pain, identity, and personal growth. She brought all of that with her, not just to the engagements, but to the way she connected with people. There is power in presence, and hers was unmistakable. King Frederik, too, seemed to be shedding layers of formality that have long defined him. Sources close to the palace have always noted the pressure he felt to live up to expectations not just of a prince, but of a future king, a son of Queen Margrethe, and a man married to an international symbol of modern royalty. But during this trip, he seemed lighter. Observers commented on the way he interacted, not as a man fulfilling duty, but as someone who had found peace in his partnership. His respect and admiration for Mary were palpable in the way he deferred to her, in the way he allowed her to lead in moments where her voice was most needed. For years, royal observers speculated about the strain behind the scenes. There were rumors, whispers of distance, of misunderstandings, of the inevitable pressure that comes from living a life so relentlessly public. But if there was ever a moment that dismantled those rumors, it was this journey. Together, they showed not just a united front, but a deeply authentic partnership. They touched lives, yes. But perhaps more importantly, they reminded the world that royalty can still be human, and that in their humanity, they become even more powerful. Even fashion critics were stunned. Not by extravagance, but by the symbolism in Queen Mary's wardrobe choices. She wore designs that paid tribute to local cultures, pieces crafted by small designers, colors and motifs that echoed the voices of those she came to meet. Her choices weren't about standing out, they were about standing with. She used fashion not as a form of dominance, but as dialogue. Meanwhile, King Frederik also made his own quiet statements. He chose simple suits, rolled up his sleeves during community projects, and skipped lavish banquets to attend informal dinners where locals shared their stories and dreams. That decision did not go unnoticed. It signaled humility. It signaled that this was not a king obsessed with optics, but with impact. And yet, beyond the appearances, beyond the symbolism, lay something even more compelling: authenticity. One staff member, speaking anonymously, revealed that both Mary and Frederik insisted on private moments during their trip, not for leisure, but to reflect, to pray, to center themselves amid the demands of their roles. They don't just show up, the staffer said. They show up with purpose. They want to feel where they are, not just perform. That level of emotional intelligence is rare in public figures. And even rarer in royalty, where centuries of tradition often drown out individuality. But perhaps that is what makes Queen Mary and King Frederik so fascinating. They aren't trying to erase the traditions they come from. They're evolving them. Quietly, gently, without fanfare or rebellion, but with a clarity that cannot be ignored. And in that evolution, a new model of monarchy is emerging, one that is not about titles, but trust. One that is not about rules, but relationship. One that doesn't just serve from above, but stands beside. There was a moment during their trip, a brief but powerful moment, when Queen Mary stopped to kneel beside a young child at a health clinic. The child, frightened and unwell, looked up with wary eyes. Mary didn't speak at first. She simply offered her hand. The child hesitated, then took it. A small moment, yes. But one that speaks volumes. Because in that moment, she wasn't a queen. She was a mother, a human, a beacon of calm. And King Frederik, standing nearby, watched with an expression of such tenderness it nearly moved the staff to tears. If we want to understand the true measure of these royals, we must look not at their crowns, but at their choices. The choice to show up. The choice to connect. The choice to carry their roles with grace but without pretension. That is what this journey revealed. Back home, Danes responded with pride. Social media erupted with praise, not just from fans but from critics who admitted they were deeply moved. This is what leadership looks like, one user wrote. Not pomp, not perfection, but presence, compassion, realness. And that's what many had suspected for a long time, that behind the formality, behind the cameras and carriages, King Frederik and Queen Mary are a couple forged in something far deeper than obligation. They are united by shared values, by love that has survived decades, and by a vision for what royalty can be in the 21st century. Not a spectacle, but a service. Not a relic, but a reflection of modern humanity. So as they return to Denmark, their actions abroad echo louder than ever. This was not just another royal trip. It was a declaration. A subtle, powerful reaffirmation of their commitment, not only to each other, but to the people they serve. They reminded the world of what monarchy can still mean. Of what compassion looks like in action. Of what strength looks like when wrapped in humility. And of what love looks like when it chooses to grow, not behind palace walls, but out in the world, far from home. Their return from this journey did not mark the end of a royal tour, it signaled the beginning of a turning point. What Queen Mary and King Frederik did while away from Denmark didn't just resonate with those they touched personally. It sparked a broader conversation about what monarchy truly means in today's world. For too long, royal families have been boxed into predictable narratives, either adored for their ceremonial roles or criticized for their detachment. But Mary and Frederik defy both categories. What they demonstrated abroad wasn't just heartwarming, it was revolutionary. As they boarded their plane home, hand in hand, with tired eyes and sincere smiles, the images circulated like wildfire. News outlets from Europe to Australia ran headlines that read more like poetry than journalism. A royal bond forged in purpose, Queen of Hearts, King of Quiet Strength, the trip that changed everything. Analysts noted how rare it is for a royal couple to remain so in sync after decades of marriage, multiple children, and the unrelenting pressures of public life. But the Danish royals have always been an anomaly in the best sense of the word. Queen Mary, born in Tasmania, started her life far removed from royalty. Her transformation from Mary Donaldson into Queen Mary of Denmark is often hailed as a fairy tale, but the reality is much deeper. She was never content to simply wear the crown, she has used it as a tool. A tool to amplify causes she cares about, to protect the vulnerable, and to champion change in areas often ignored by power structures. On this latest trip, she embodied all of that, and more. At a small refugee center, she sat cross-legged on the floor with children who had lost their homes and families. Translators were barely needed. Her tone, her body language, the gentleness of her gestures transcended language. One volunteer later said that Mary cried quietly when she heard a young girl speak about walking through conflict zones to escape violence. But she didn't leave those tears at the door. She brought those stories with her. To speeches, to meetings, to private discussions with local leaders where she urged long-term policy change. King Frederik's contributions were equally impactful. While he tends to be more understated, his influence is never absent. He spent time in local community centers talking to men about mental health and social responsibility. His speeches avoided grandeur. They were filled with stories of fatherhood, struggle, and the importance of being present. In one small gathering, he opened up about the pressures of growing up under scrutiny, and how he found healing not in privilege, but in purpose. A video clip went viral showing the royal couple during a walk through a modest neighborhood. They stopped frequently, spoke with street vendors, laughed with children, and even took time to buy local crafts, not for photo ops, but because they wanted to support small businesses. In one shop, they bought handmade bracelets and asked the maker about her process. That interaction was picked up by local news and flooded social media. They saw me, the shop owner later said. Not as charity, but as a creator. That meant everything. And it's in these seemingly small moments that Queen Mary and King Frederik have proven the enormous potential of modern monarchy. Their charisma isn't constructed, it's consistent. Their grace doesn't come from inherited titles but from a lifelong commitment to using their visibility to elevate others. Every handshake, every quiet pause, every shared look between them told a story not of entitlement, but of empathy. Royal watchers have long speculated about what kind of King Frederik would be once Queen Margrethe stepped down. Now, with the crown on his head and Mary at his side as Queen Consort, the world is starting to understand. This will be a reign defined not by pomp, but by people. They are rewriting the rules, not by tearing down tradition, but by adding compassion to the foundation of their roles. One evening during the trip, a local artist hosted the royal couple in her studio. The artist later posted an emotional message describing how Frederik had asked about her childhood and her inspirations, listening for over half an hour. Mary, she wrote, noticed every detail of her paintings and praised not only the art but the emotion behind it. Before leaving, the Queen wrote a message in the guestbook. Your story lives in every color you chose. Thank you for sharing your truth with us. These stories rippled across the internet like waves. People from every corner of the globe shared their own encounters with the Danish royals, creating a mosaic of human connection that no press release could manufacture. The couple's sincerity was undeniable. And in an age of curated appearances and filtered realities, authenticity is the rarest currency of all. And yet, this transformation hasn't been easy. For years, Mary and Frederik weathered speculation, especially when their marriage seemed to take hits in the tabloids. There were rumors of distance, suggestions of personal struggles, whispers of fatigue under the royal burden. But their trip away revealed something else entirely, a relationship that has endured precisely because it has been tested. They didn't just survive the pressures, they grew from them. It was evident in how they moved in rhythm, how they responded to each other's unspoken cues, how they protected each other in vulnerable moments. During a particularly emotional part of the trip, when Queen Mary became overwhelmed after visiting a women's shelter, King Frederik placed his hand gently on her back, silently grounding her. It was a simple gesture, but it said everything. That's partnership. That's love. That's leadership. Royal historian Ingrid Nielsen said it best. This is not just a royal couple doing charity work. This is a couple showing the world that true influence comes from intimacy, not distance. Their strength lies not in perfection, but in how deeply they are willing to feel. And feeling is what they've inspired in millions. Messages have poured in from around the world. People who saw in their actions a mirror of what they long for in their own leaders. Authenticity, compassion, and the courage to be fully human. Young couples posted videos about how Frederik and Mary have become their new standard for love and partnership. Mental health advocates praised the king's transparency. Survivors of trauma thanked the Queen for her presence, her listening, her refusal to look away. Their journey, in many ways, has become more than a royal tour. It has become a movement. Back home, the Danish royal house has seen a surge in public engagement. People who once felt disconnected from monarchy are rethinking what it can mean. Schools are requesting more visits from the royal couple. Nonprofits are partnering with the Mary Foundation in record numbers. Even young Danes, notoriously skeptical of royalty, are saying that Frederik and Mary are changing the game. And that is perhaps their greatest legacy. Not just what they do, but how they make people feel seen, heard, and valued. Their impact travels further than any official agenda. It moves in the quiet, in the personal, in the deeply human. The trip may be over, but its impact has just begun. It will live in the stories shared, in the lives touched, and in the hearts of those who, even for a moment, saw not just royalty, but realness. Mary and Frederik did more than fulfill their duty, they redefined it. And in doing so, they offered a new kind of hope. Not just for Denmark, but for all of us. Because if two people, crowned, scrutinized, bound by protocol, can choose to lead with love and vulnerability, what might the rest of us be capable of? So now we turn to you, dear viewer. What kind of legacy do you want to leave in your own journey, far from home? Like, comment, share, and subscribe for more powerful royal stories that touch the heart and challenge the world.